So first things first, just thank you very much for having me all the way across the pond. It's, yeah, as you were saying, like the one kind of silver lining to all the COVID stuff is actually being able to take part in all of these events from across the world. So yeah, it's super amazing to be here. So thank you very much. For anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Clarissa Gillingham. On Twitter, I'm at Clarissa Gillen too. And that's what I look like. Well, in case my current face here wasn't enough for you. So I'm obviously based in the UK, and as Jamie was saying, I've recently got a new job as a Power Platform configuration consultant at a company called ANS. That's based in the UK. And prior to that, I was a business applications engineer for another consultancy firm called Silver Sands. And prior to that, which was about 1.5 years ago, I didn't know anything about Office 365 or anything. I literally just thought that Office 365 was Word, PowerPoint, and Excel. And that was the extent of my knowledge. So I've kind of become like catapulted by this finding this Power Platform tech, and especially I've been specializing into Canvas apps because that's where my passion kind of lies. And before I started doing this, I had a little bit of programming background in that during my my degree, I did an introduction to programming in C for physicists. So it was really heavily like structured towards scientific programming. So no UI, everything's in the command line, and they were teaching us C because they thought that it was a modern programming language, even though it's probably the language they learned when they were going through university instead of being professors. So that was kind of a bit of an odd academic introduction to programming that kind of led to a definite interest, but also that kind of fear of just looking at that blank screen and thinking, I've got to write something. How on earth do I do this? And getting into Power Apps was the complete kind of opposite. It kind of banished that imposter syndrome and just enabled me to actually make things. So I guess that's kind of why I'm really passionate about the Power Platform. And it also kind of gives me like that background, along with the fact that I've also been a project manager for a traditional software development. So that kind of gives me this perspective where I've been on both sides of the coin. You know, I've seen the kind of more traditional dev, and I've seen the Power Platform, and this has kind of led to a lot of thinking going on as to where the Power Platform sits in a development world, and why, in my opinion, it has a very strong place in that development world. And in order to explain exactly why I think that, we're going to take some help from our friendly Italian plumber, Mario. So, everyone loves Mario. We all want to make Mario games because why on earth wouldn't you? In 1985, this was the first time that we actually came across our intrepid mustachioed plumber. That was when Super Mario Bros. 1 was released. And in the late 1990s, a community started coming together who would actually, they've managed to work out a way to actually hack into the read-only memory of the games, of the Mario games, so that they could inject their own code into that read-only memory. So you could start off by injecting new sprites or new sound effects, all of these different things, and eventually people really took it to another level. Of course, it all started off kind of jokey and memey of, you know, instead of a piranha plant, we'll put something that's a little bit less PG friendly than a piranha plant. But eventually this tech, developed into people being able to actually make kind of their own versions of Mario games. And this kind of came to a peak with the Super Kaizo World Series in around 2007, 2012. So this was kind of the era where, like streaming is coming up, people are doing speedrunning community is coming up. Everyone is starting to want to challenge themselves in video games and starting to do these challenges either for charity or, for viewers and followers. And the Super Kaizo World Series was designed to be an incredibly difficult Mario game. So basically introducing using the kind of same elements that the Mario games already had, but combining them in such a way as to make it really, really tricky and difficult. And they became really quite popular. But unfortunately, because this was still using ROM hack technology, even though I say it became quite popular, it was still popular within this small little bubble of people who knew how to do this stuff, and people who knew what it was and that it was actually around and about, and that they could actually, get hold of these things and start playing them. But all that kind of got blown wide open when 5 years ago, Nintendo released Super Mario Maker. And probably the easiest way for me to describe what Super Mario Maker is to show you this. So we can see this is the beginning level of our first Super Mario game, and this is it in the Super Mario Maker editor. You've got this drag and drop interface where you can put in all of these different elements, and you can, build up from all of the different components. And this is the whole like ethos behind it, is that anyone can play it, anyone can make it, and everyone can play it. So all of a sudden, you've gone from something that was quite this small community where people weren't able to really get in very easily, to the whole thing just being blown wide open to the whole world. So from ROM hacks, which were the first fan-made Mario games, where you're actually, as I say, editing that read-only memory, which of course takes a lot of time to skill up and learn about how to do this. It's not that intuitive kind of drag and drop view that we just saw of what Mario Maker is. Instead, you're going through using hex editors, and everything is distributed online by yourself. There's no kind of platform for you to easily share things or easily download them and use them. And of course, it's not supported by Nintendo themselves, which I think is one of the reasons why they then brought out Mario Maker, because they kind of saw that that market, that niche that was there, available and ready for them to exploit is the wrong word, but ready for this content. But the ROM hacks themselves, obviously not exactly what Nintendo want to promote. And usually, of course, ROM hacks are only able to be applied to the older games. Once you get away from things like the SNES and the NES, you move away from the games being made in such a way that these hacks can actually work. So you wouldn't be able to use this technique to create a kind of modified version of 3D World or New Super Mario. And from that, we've gone to Mario Maker, where suddenly you've now got this accessible level creation where literally everyone can really intuitively figure out exactly what they have to do to create a level. You don't need to go through this long period of learning all of these skills to be able to actually go ahead and just do the thing, as Donna likes to say. You've got what you see is what you get editor. So you're literally dragging your platform straight to where you want to walk on them or run on them. You're dragging your enemies to exactly where you need them. And you've got that in-editor play experience where you can literally go from the maker portal immediately into playing it without having to compile anything or go through any kind of difficult process in order to get it into a state where you can play and test it. You can immediately do that just from the moment that you drag that element onto the screen. And you can also share your levels with the world really easily, just with a single click of a button, though you do have to actually be able to beat your level to make sure that people don't just put something that's super difficult on there. But you know, so long as you can beat your level with a simple click, you can share it with the world. And you've got these simple to use building blocks that you can choose from that allow people to, you know, really modularly create the levels. Of course, this is supported by Nintendo, and because of the fact that we're no longer using ROM hack technology, Nintendo are actually providing us the tech to be able to do it. It includes newer games like 3D World, New Soup, and you know goes through all the extra kind of power-ups and enemies that you get in those different games. So let's look at why would you make your level in Mario Maker then? Well, firstly, of course, it's quick and intuitive to make it. So there's a definite huge pro to being able to just download the game, load it up, and within 5 minutes you're making your level and you're playing your level. You can easily share it with the world, and there is no skill requirement to get started. It's done in such a way that anyone can make it, everyone can play it. But of course, there are also some downsides. Unfortunately, for every Mario, there's always a Bowser. So, unfortunately, in Mario Maker, there's no ability to add new sprites or mechanics. You can only use the enemies or power-ups or sprites or controls and jump abilities that Mario has that are already present within the games. And you can only use those available building blocks to start actually building your level. So there is a kind of sense of that being potentially limiting. So obviously the answer to this question really technically is yes. Yes, it is limiting that you can only use the building blocks that you're given and that you can't change the behavior of those building blocks because they're kind of like a black box of where you put a mushroom down, you know exactly what's going to happen when Mario eats the mushroom, it's going to get bigger. You can't change that functionality. But in actuality, the community has managed to use these building blocks in such a way that they can get around those limitations. Yes, sure, you can't make that mushroom do something different, but you can basically create the effect that you wanted to create by using all of these other building blocks in certain ways. So this is what I tend to refer to as limitation breeding creativity. So it's only when we're put into those scenarios where we are unable to really easily just say, okay, with a single button click, I can make it do this. You're actually put into that mindset of needing to solve that problem and come up with a creative solution, thinking outside of the box to be able to create that effect or behavior or outcome that you initially wanted. And in the Mario Maker community, we see this all the time. So obviously, Mario games are, or the Mario games that are available in Mario Maker are 2D or two-dimensional platformers. And yet the level that you can see screenshotted before you looks like it's in a 3D room. And this is someone who has created this effect by using the fact that you can have steep slopes and shallow slopes to create the perspective of the walls going towards the edge of the room. They've used the fact that the 10 coin is bigger than the single coin to make it look like you've got that perspective going through the level. And this was a kind of went viral, this level, because of the cleverness of all of the ways that they put together this kind of point and click 3D adventure in a 2D game. This next screenshot is of someone who's recreated pinball in Mario. So essentially they've used the fact that thwomps will come down, hit seesaws, and then they'll be able to fire off different items. In this case, a shell is being fired off to be able to collect coins and bounce through the level. So they've been able to use the fact that even though you can't specify at this point in time, I want that seesaw to go up, you can use, or the player can use the fact that the thwomp will react to Mario's proximity to then control it in this kind of slightly roundabout way, but they've got that effect and that behavior that they wanted. In this level, you can play as a Koopa. You'll see in this screenshot, Mario doesn't even appear on the screen. This is a rather wonderful story level where they utilize the screen scrolling properties within Mario Maker to enable it to look as though you're playing as the Koopa rather than Mario. And this is a screenshot of a puzzle level that people have made where essentially you're using all of the different components that you can see on the screen to get to the goal, but it's very tricky to figure out exactly the right order to use all of these different blocks. And kind of on a meta level, this kind of represents, I guess, the kind of problem solving skills and creativity that goes into making these levels. And this is only like the tip of the iceberg. So people have recreated Mario Kart. They've recreated bullet hell boss fights from games like Undertale. Even probably the most crazy one is that they've used the fact that there's a note block that you can pop it into the screen, and depending on the X coordinate it spawns at, it will play a different note when it's hit. And so people have used this to create music levels where basically they've spawned in all of these different note blocks at different positions, moved them around into locations where they can be hit as Mario runs through the level, and it plays a song. Like, that's kind of mind-blowing when you think about the time and effort that goes into doing that, and yet they've been able to do that on their Switch, on a game, without having to go in and do any kind of coding or modification. They've been able to introduce their own music into the game. So you might be thinking, Clarissa, you've been waffling on about Mario for ages, and yeah, sure, you've made me want to play the game, maybe. But what has this got to do with Microsoft Power Platform? And others of you might already be, the cogs might already be turning, and you might already be seeing where I'm going with this. Because let's flip it around. Let's have a look. Instead of wanting to make a Mario game, let's make a business app. Back in the 1990s, business applications are all custom built. They're all bespoke, traditional development in a variety of languages. You have obviously C still kicking around and Fortran. You've got C++ and Python kind of rising up. During the 90s, you get Visual Basic coming into the scene, and things like Java and JavaScript. And then during the 2000s, you have that rise of the .NET framework and things like C# really coming to the foreground. But then in 2013, something very different happened. Whereas before this point, you had to know how to code. You had to go either to university and do a computer science degree, or you had to go through years really of learning to be able to put together business applications, to be able to start putting these things together. And even if you've got all of those qualifications and all of those years of knowledge, you need a team of people to put these things together. People will specialize in certain things in traditional development. And so you'll have someone who specializes in, for example, UI, and someone who specializes in something else, and they work together to create an application. But with the launch of Project Sienna, this kind of broke those rules. Microsoft were trying something new, something actually very similar to what Nintendo were trying when they released Mario Maker. They were trying to open up development and making these business applications to people who weren't developers, people whose job was just any kind of regular job. And they were saying to them, okay, we want to give you the power to make the application that will make your lives easier. And of course, as we all know, this turns into, in 2016, we get Power Apps and Microsoft Flow, which of course is now Power Automate, released into general availability. And this starts this huge movement of citizen developers, of people like myself, really, who had maybe some programming background, but had that imposter syndrome related to it, and that fear of not being able to actually make something of it because of the, that barrier to entry, that really high barrier to entry. And suddenly you have people like me being able to make our own apps, being able to inject as much code as we want into those apps to be able to create that effect that we want in the end. And obviously we know this is what the Power Platform has become today. We've got Power Automate, Power Apps, Power BI, and now Power Virtual Agents. Also kind of tagged along, but not actually on this slide. I always like to include Microsoft Forms as kind of like the long lost cousin of the Power Platform. And all of this is built on an easily accessible and introductory database, rather than having to work with SQL and learn all of the queries that you need to do and all of the kind of difficult stuff that, to be honest, some people in its own right, that is a job for people, is to manage databases. Instead of having to do that, this is all built on the Common Data Service, which is, again, an introductory, accessible way to get into doing these, making these applications and storing your data. So we've gone from traditional development, which of course has that huge barrier to entry, where you need to go through and learn absolutely everything before you can sit down. And even then, even after all of that time learning, you can sit down and still not know the exact way to fix your problem, and obviously have to then go away and do research. Generally, of course, traditional development is through the use of IDEs, and then you would have to compile the code that you write into something that you can then run. And obviously, anyone who's ever done any traditional development will know the fear of watching your code compile and just hoping that you don't get that list of errors. But of course, it's so difficult to write code absolutely perfectly, especially first time round. So you always get an error or two to come and ruin your day. And you have to handle your own distribution. There's no kind of just putting it out there for the world, or no helping hand in actually putting this in a situation where your organization could adopt the application that you've made. The company that I was doing project management for, that we're using traditional development, when we were releasing our latest versions of the programs that we were making, we were literally moving things around, copying files, moving them around from flash drive on a flash drive from PC to PC, moving it around. When we were working with making simulators, so when you've got a simulator that has over 20 graphics PCs and you're having to move this single flash drive between all of the different computers, it is not a pleasant kind of distribution system. And I know obviously that there are some traditional development practices that have improved this, but they've had to go through that process of saying to themselves, well, how do we go ahead and improve this distribution kind of roadblock that we have? Obviously, you've got that high skill floor, which is going to turn away a lot of people who could potentially be very good at making applications and at programming and at developing, from actually trying to start and getting into the development world. Obviously, I've said about the woes of compilation and having to, of course, pick what device you are developing for. We are so lucky with Power Apps that it will just run on everything. If you're in the traditional development world, it's going to require something different to get it working on an Android phone, on an iOS device, on PC, on web. You're going to have to basically build things from the ground up all over again, just for a different device. And of course, as we've talked about, it often requires this team of specialists to come together to create something, and generally it's over quite a significant time frame, because you've got all of these barriers and hurdles. Whereas now with the Power Platform, and in particular focusing on Canvas apps, you've got that accessible app creation where someone can start watching a tutorial, and halfway through watching a Shane Young video, they can go, okay, actually I think maybe I could give this a go, and they can wear it up on their own environment, and they can go ahead and start making from day one. You've got that same drag and drop WYSIWYG editor, just like we saw with Mario Maker, where you can literally drag your enemies onto the level exactly where you want them to appear in the level. We have that in Power Apps. We can just drag our buttons to where we want them. We can drag all sorts of different things, make sure that it's exactly as we want to see it. When we're in the editor, we've got that visual representation of what it looks like while we're making it, which in a lot of traditional development environments you don't have. You just have the calculations that you've done, and then when you compile it, you start to see whether you've actually made those calculations correctly. Obviously, that in-editor play experience, so that instant knowledge of whether you've made a mistake or not. You don't have to go through that kind of horrendous butterflies in the stomach. How many errors am I going to get when I try and compile it this time? You can just hit play, see what happens, and it creates this more kind of iterative problem solving approach that is more intuitive to the way that our brains work. And of course, with pretty much a single click, you can share your apps with other members in your organization. So you no longer have to worry about that distribution or about moving versions between different machines and making sure that everyone's on the same version. Having people call in and say, oh, I've got this problem with the application. Oh, have you updated? No, I haven't. You can avoid all of those kind of roadblocks to getting people to that application that will help them be more productive. obviously we've got that modular approach where we have these simple building blocks that we're putting together to create something more complex. And you've got those constant updates from Microsoft. Just as in Mario Maker, they're always, well, now in Mario Maker 2, they're always dropping new updates and DLC for us. Exactly the same happens for us making Power Apps and in the Power Platform. As we all know, partly it's a job in and of itself to just keep up with what Microsoft are putting out because they are so fast. And we all know from enjoying watching Ignite over the past few weeks, the kind of quality of updates that we get. And of course, the core benefit of Canvas apps is that you can extend the functionality. So anything that you can't do within your Power App, you can then turn to other Power Platform modules and see if they can do it for you instead. So integration with obviously things like Power Automate to be able to send out notifications into Teams, or whatever kind of integration you want that potentially you won't be able to just do in your Canvas app itself. And all of these other elements allow you to actually put that in place and put that together. So we get that same question though. Isn't it limiting? I've sat here and I've said all of these amazing things about the Power Platform and about Canvas apps. But at the end of the day, we're still in that situation where we've got the controls that we've got. We can't add any more in, well, I can't say we can't, but it's more difficult to add any more. And the controls that we have are a kind of black box where we can't go in and we can't edit the behavior. So in much the same way as we asked the question for Mario levels, we ask the same question for Canvas apps. And the truth is that yes, it is limiting, but does that matter? And once again, the answer is no. So again, we see the community element come in, and all of the people who have been making absolutely incredible stuff with Power Platform and really been pushing it beyond the measure of what I guess what I can only assume anyone at Microsoft who was making this stuff could have imagined would actually come out of it at the other end. So for example, on the left side of the screen here, you see this amazing isometric point and click RPG adventure that Brian Dang made in Power Apps. And I still, every time I see this, I have to have like a double take, because I have to remind myself this is Power Apps. It doesn't look like Power Apps. It looks like a native kind of traditional development game. And yet it is Power Apps, and it's something that he was able to create easily, quickly, intuitively. He was able to test it as he was making it. It's kind of mind-blowing what some people have been able to achieve. Similarly, in the center of the screen, you see Taichi and obviously Kodamajan, who's been helping as well to create the Power Apps Orchestra. And they've literally, I think it's their mission to create every single instrument in Power Apps. So you can have everyone there on their devices, either virtually or in person, actually being able to play music together, which I'm sure wasn't what Microsoft had in mind when they were first coming up with Project Sienna. And yet this is such a fantastic use case. And it really, again, it's pushing that boundary of what's possible. And not to say that I'm pushing the boundaries of what's possible, but inspired by some of the other community members, this was something that I started putting together, which is kind of a block ball game where you have to kind of move the bounce pad across to keep the ball afloat. This is obviously in its early stages before we have the blocks that traditionally you'd have blocks coming down that you break. But this was just an afternoon where I was like, I wonder if I can do this in Power Apps. We don't have an animation control, and we don't have a property on different shapes or labels or icons that, you know, enables super easy animation. It's not like we've got the kind of animation functionality from PowerPoint that's sitting there in Power Apps ready for us to get started. But I was like, well, I've seen what some other people have done, and I know that what we do have, I can put together to make an animation. What we do have, I can put together to make to simulate that kind of physics connection of something hitting and bouncing off of something else. And you can actually see now where I've revealed all of the elements that are underneath, that the motion of the ball is controlled by these sliders, and the sliders are controlled by a timer. And essentially, it's the bounce is controlled by the proximity of the ball, or of the slider value, to the edge of the slider, its maximum value or minimum value. So very simply, just putting together some of those basic controls where we've got, you know, basically it's 3 sliders, 1 shape, and a timer. And we've used those controls to simulate animation and physics. And the core kind of inspiration for that was when I saw this animation from Michael Kozlowski. This really blew my mind. And if anyone hasn't seen it, this was one of the first times that at least I saw anyone doing something similar to this online. And you can see he's essentially got a dynamically reacting animation going on, where he can control the speed of the planes and the area that the planes are flying in real time in his published app. And that's not something that's out the box. That's very much requires thinking outside of the box, and yet he's been able to do that with the basic building blocks that we have. And it's that kind of problem solving mindset that, you know, it really, I think, makes the Power Platform community very special, and it makes, you know, it makes us who we are. That kind of power addicts idea is when we get so hooked into it because of that challenge, that problem solving, kind of almost like a game, you know, of going together, trying to figure out how you put together all of these different things that are in your toolkit to be able to make something that you would never have believed that was possible to make before. And I couldn't talk about the creativity of the community without mentioning this application from Matt Devaney, because this is again another example of something that just kind of blew my mind, because just like in Brian Dang's game, it doesn't look like a power-up, and I think that's something that you know, a lot of people who come from a more traditional development background kind of almost look down on power-ups because of the, you know, the idea that maybe it looks a bit clunky, or you know, it's not as polished. And I would defy anyone to look at this and say, yeah, that's not polished, that looks clunky, because it really doesn't. And this is kind of the level that the users have been able to elevate the platform to. And that gives us this kind of sense of ownership and sense of involvement in the development process that really gets people hooked. Maybe people who wouldn't have been you know, interested, or wouldn't have thought that they were interested in a development route beforehand, people who would have been put off by the 4 years of going through computer science at university, or put off by the certain environments in other development communities. So this really, I think, is one of the the strengths of the Power Platform. Even though you can always say, yes, if I'm given the option of having the thing that does everything and having the thing that doesn't do everything, I will choose the thing that does everything. But when you're faced with the kind of consequences of that choice of knowing, well, if you've bought the product that does absolutely everything, here you go, here's your 5,000 page manual that you have to read to figure out how to turn it on, as opposed to the thing that, you know, maybe has slightly less functionality, you can still get it to do what you want, and you can get going in, you know, half a day, and get actually making something. I think everyone would actually switch their answer and go for the thing that allows them to make stuff quickly. And even if you're not actually going through and pushing the boundaries like those community members are, you can create the most incredible and complex applications really, really quickly. So this is a map of a Death Star new starters application that myself and my friends Ben Haynes and Dave Hughes made for a webinar at my old company, Silver Sands. So we kind of had this idea of a process that kind of lended itself to being digitized by the Power Platform. And so we chose a new starters process. And because just going through a new starters process is a bit boring, and also we were actually preparing for the webinar on Star Wars Day, we decided to make it about stormtroopers who were applying to be transferred to the new Death Star facility. So it all starts off with a form in Microsoft Forms. And then this pushes in via a flow in Power Automate into an entity in CDS that holds our data of our person who has applied to be transferred into the Death Star. From there, that data then feeds a model-driven app that allows a like kind of manager to go through and actually process that application, go through the interview, and see whether that person is a suitable fit for the positions that are available. And then that also feeds into a Canvas app that allows them to, in a nice user-friendly way, actually add that person into their records. And it also feeds into a portal, which allows users or people who have made their application not only to find the form to apply, because we've got that initial form is actually embedded within the portal, but also using a Power Virtual Agent to actually talk to the Death Star protocol bot to find out all of the information, all of the answers to the questions that they might be asking about what happens when they start, how do they get to the Death Star, all of these different questions that they might have. And that is accessible from the portal as well. But we didn't stop there. We also took their image that was coming in from the application form and applied some applied AI to it to work out what kind of trooper they were, and also whether they were likely to be rebel scum because they were a little bit on the short side. And this information got fed back to the entity as well. And the information from our Canvas app, when we actually add new starters, that gets fed into a flow in Power Automate that then gives a notification to someone in the relevant department in the Death Star that someone new will be joining their department. Fantastic. So there's another element there, that's a module that's been added on. And all of this data is then surfaced in a Power BI report, and that is also surfaced in Teams. So none of this is going beyond what you can do out of the box, and yet within a matter of 2 days, we had come up with an end-to-end process that started off with an application form, went through multiple managerial levels of actually going through the interview and the interview process of recording all of that data so that it was auditable, having a nice, easy interface that people could use to add their new starter to their AD, having a portal that new starters could go to then help them in their like kind of pre-induction phase. Also utilize AI to figure out exactly who these people were who were applying, and using Power Automate, notify people, keep everyone in the loop of what was going on, and finally keep Lord Vader in the loop with a nice dashboard report that we would be able to give to him so that he can see exactly how we're getting on with staffing our new Death Star. So at the end of the day, it's all about choosing the right tool for the right task. Of course, traditional development, you can make some absolutely incredible things with traditional development. It is perfect for full-scale multi-purpose applications. Obviously, there's no way that Microsoft would have been able to make, half of the Office suite in Power Apps, but there's a time and a place for everything. Or I think as me and Sarah Lungerquist were having a discussion about this a couple of months back, and I came up with the analogy of you can't make a spatula with a cheese knife, but you can't cut cheese with a you can't make an omelette with a cheese knife, but you can't cut cheese with a spatula. So essentially, it's all just about making sure that you're using the right thing to make the right product. So if you've got highly complex requirements, go for traditional dev. If you've got anything that is memory intensive or CPU intensive that has loads of calculations, those are like kind of physical models, you're not going to be making like your physics engine for your next first-person shooter game in Power Apps. But that is kind of your perfect use case for traditional development. Anything that interfaces with custom-built hardware as well, that's kind of you're perfect for going down the traditional dev route. Where you've got a pro dev team already skilled up, it could be the right option. However, there's also a lot of scenarios in which using the Power Platform is the right thing to do. So anywhere where you've got individual processes or modules that need to be automated, and generally these are in scenarios like businesses where this needs to happen at a relatively quick pace. Business processes tend to fluctuate and evolve over the years. You can't really be dumping a load of money and time into spending like 6 to 12 months making an application for something that maybe in 6 to 12 months it's that process has changed or evolved, and you need something that is going to be able to change with you, and the Power Platform is really ideal and perfect for that scenario. Anything where you just want to do quick branding or customization on top of out-of-the-box features, why bother reinventing the wheel? Right, so anyone who is doing traditional development, it's not a case of you are a pro dev so you don't use Power Platform. I personally believe that there's many scenarios in which Power Platform will help people who are pro developers and are traditional developers to speed up their their processes, and also be able to basically cut corners, right? I mean, programming is all about smart lazy. We're putting together code and applications so that our future lives will be easier. So why bother going through all the stress and all the difficulties of having to reinvent and rewrite that thing that is already right there, ready for you to pick off the shelf? It's kind of like going, okay, so I've got the cheese knife and I want to make an omelette. I'm going to go and fetch this bit of wood and whittle myself a spatula so that I can make the the omelette. Instead, you could just pick up the spatula off the shelf, and you would be a lot less hungry because you'd have lunch a lot quicker. So anything that is kind of that rapid development, that's where you need something that will be able to react quickly with you. And also for prototyping. So I know that for a lot of traditional development routes, you end up going down the road of designing the UI, wireframing the UI, then uploading that into another application that will allow you to put hotspots on so that people can simulate clicking through the different screens. My question kind of is, well, why bother doing that when you could just quickly mock up the screens in Power Apps, and you've got the ability right there to be able to click through. You've even got the ability to be able to show them how it will manipulate their data right in the mock-up from the very beginning. And that's got to be a huge selling point. So even if it's not going to be the route that you actually go down to create your full application, it's going to speed up that kind of prototyping, proof of concept stage dramatically, and be able to kind of help the customer to kind of see that end goal vision. Because often with traditional development, it's going to be months down the line until you see something that to be able to then from the customer side, to be able to start shaping and directing where that is going and where that ends up. You could probably cut down a lot of those kind of like iterative feedback loops by prototyping in Power Apps. Obviously, we've got this huge benefit of the fact that you only need to make it once. So any kind of scenario where you're having to target different devices, you should probably be thinking Power Apps or Power Platform is kind of in the perfect situation to be best placed. And I know that probably, all of you guys are already sold on the Power Platform, already sold on the Power Apps story. But I think it's also important for us to, as a community, also reach out to those in other communities and say, hey, look, we're working with this tech that we think might help you. Because it's not just about bringing people up through the kind of citizen developer path. It's also about how we can use this tech to help people who are already at that pro dev stage, who are already, making their own custom applications. Is there a way that we can save them time, save them energy, keep them doing what they do best? And I certainly think that there is. And of course, if you're in a situation where you have users who aren't kind of in that kind of developer mindset yet, then Power Platform is a perfect way to skill up those users. All of those kind of scenarios that I was talking about, where we can see that the creativity that comes from or comes about and comes to light through working around those different roadblocks, through seeing those limitations and going, okay, well, I want to make the thing anyway, so I'm going to work around it and create my own way of getting there, even if there's no out-the-box way. That kind of thinking is the perfect kind of transferable skill for learning any kind of programming and going into development. So the Power Platform is not only a great tool for us, a great tool for citizen developers, it's also a great tool for pro developers, and it's a great tool for building up the next generation of developers. So I think that's it from me. Hopefully I haven't gone too light on the time, but if anyone has any questions, now's the perfect time.
You put that together amazing. Like I'm going to go ahead and find the Mario World for my own. I feel like I'm gonna be a junkie. I'm a Mario junkie. Um, but you hit so many things, and one thing I love about being in a community is that you hear all these amazing stories of people who came to the product from these different like walks of life. Like everyone did something totally different and came into it. Is really good to know. Um, when you first started, what was the first thing that you was like, oh damn, what did I get myself into? Was it a project or was it just looking at documentation? What kind of caught your eye and how did you get around it?
Do you mean for like when I was looking at back when I was learning traditional dev, or when I started doing Power Apps?
When you started doing Power Apps?
When I started doing Power Apps, yeah. So I think the first thing that kind of made me go, oh my gosh, can I actually do this? Was probably when I was trying to create a, it sounds really simple now, but trying to create a dynamic pop-up. So a pop-up that would come up and rather than having, multiple different pop-ups for multiple different things, I wanted to create it so that regardless of whether my user was trying to cancel something or reassign something or do something else, I was actually, handling that in just the one pop-up. And I kind of had that first initial feeling of, that same feeling that I got when I was trying to work with traditional dev, of thinking, oh, I don't know if I can do this, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And then just beginning to go through the steps and being able to see instantly what was happening, having that visual feedback of, being able to pick, basically pick something out and say, well, this is the value at this point in time. Okay, cool. Now I know that I know what to put in my if statement. I know what to put in my switch statement. It just gives you that confidence that you're going in the right direction and doing the right thing. And that was really when it kind of clicked for me that this was allowing me to do all of those things that I thought was really cool when I was learning traditional dev, but in a kind of safe space almost, where you can, obviously we say it's low code, no code, but I prefer to say it's as much as you want code, because you can just inject however much you want into your applications and make them as complex as you're ready to make them.
Yeah.
So first of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity to present here at the DC user group. I have been wanting to present at this user group for a very long time. So I'm glad I'm here. And yes, it's my third presentation of the day, but I think I will keep my energy levels as high as the first. Okay, so my name is Reza Dorrani. I am a business apps MVP, principal consultant at Catapult Systems. I lead the Houston user group. I am also a community super user for both Power Apps and Power Automate. The session today is, of course, on mixed reality and geospatial components in Power Apps. Before I begin, I would like to give a big shout out to the product team. I have been involved with the private preview for both mixed reality as well as geospatial. And I was so excited with it that I actually asked them, can I share these things? And they were like, yeah, of course you can go ahead and share. I'm like, can I share these publicly? And they're like, yes. So I'm hoping I can share some new things with you guys. For folks who've been following me all around, I know there are a few on this meeting. You guys might know some of this stuff. Otherwise, for the other folks, I'm sure this is going to be something new and interesting. Okay, so mixed reality, first part of my session is going to be on mixed reality in Power Apps. Second part will be on the geospatial components. So let's begin with mixed reality first. Now, mixed reality in Power Apps is the merge. So what is MR first? MR, or mixed reality, is the merging of real and virtual worlds together. And Power Apps is one of the first low-code, no-code platforms that makes it possible for everyone to build mixed reality apps. Guess what? Even I've built one. With hundreds and millions, literally, of augmented reality capable mobile devices, every app maker now can leverage these capabilities and Power Apps to extend their business solutions further, literally through a drag and drop experience. Now, with the mixed reality components in Power Apps comes multiple controls. The first control that we are looking at right here is a control called View in 3D. Of course, all of these controls are in preview, so it's very important to note that. And as part of View in 3D, first thing is you can add 3D content to your apps, primarily Canvas apps. You can use the View in 3D component to rotate and zoom into the model with simple gestures. You can display a single 3D model, or you can let the user select from a gallery. So if I have a gallery control that has all my models, user can select an item in the gallery and I can load that specific model in this control. You can set the source for the 3D content as a direct URL to a .glb file. Now, for folks who work with 3D, they will be very familiar with this. I really struggled with this, trying to get models that work with GLB. If you typically search for 3D models, GLB is one that has the model, it has the textures, it has the file, it has a lot of components to it, and it's not easy trying to generate a GLB file. So if you ask me what's the hardest part in working with mixed reality in Power Apps, I will tell you finding the right 3D model. Of course, these models can be stored anonymously and you can just directly link them, or you can even load these models into your app if you have these models stored in SharePoint or as an attachment somewhere. It's a little bit more work to do that though. Of course, your 3D content has to be in GLB file format. Support for additional formats is planned and is coming soon. And for you to convert your existing models into GLB, there is a wide variety of 3D formats to choose from. There are some online tools available, but most of them are either paid. I know the product team is working on this to simplify this process for us. And now brand new, actually I was prepping up for this session and I noticed something completely new in the View in 3D model. You can now define pins on the 3D object. So if you focus on the right-hand side in that image, if you see the chair, I have specifically plotted some points, right? I have a few points in the front of the chair. I have one in the backrest of the chair. So you can now apply pins in the 3D model. And when the user clicks on it, you can actually show what that, you can actually specify what that pin is about. The second control, so of course, the first one is just to view it in 3D in your app. Now the second control is View in MR, basically view in mixed reality. And when you trigger this control and specify a 3D model, it will place that 3D model in your own space. This is mixed reality, the virtual world coming through with your real world. This will create a button in your Canvas app, and when you click that button, it will automatically open up your camera on your mobile device. That means it only works on mobile devices. And it will go ahead and launch the 3D model, has to be a GLB file, and then it will place it in your live feed. You can also take pictures while you're viewing the model in mixed reality, and you can store them in OneDrive. Of course, there's no magic button that says push it to OneDrive. You will have to write functionality which does that. The next one is view shapes in mixed reality. So just like you view models, 3D models in mixed reality, if you don't have a model or if you're trying to fit a specific shape, length, height, width, you want to place that in your space, you can actually do that as well by using the view shape in MR component. You can set the dimensions of your cube and place the cube in your real world. Of course, if you have a 3D model, you would rather use the view MR in 3D functionality. And apart from these three, there is a fourth one as well. And this one is the measurement capabilities in mixed reality. So you can measure distance, you can measure area, and you can also go ahead and measure volume. So you can create these 2D and 3D polygon shapes, confirm that these shapes work for you, get the dimensions out, and do some work around it. Just like the other two controls, it will add a button. You click on the button, it will open your camera device, it will start analyzing your space, and then you can just hit on the plus icon where you want the point to be and start dragging it, and it will start calculating the distance. For some reason, it calculates in centimeters, but the response comes back in meters. The app users, of course, have to identify a starting point to measure from. So you have to pick that, and then you can start measuring. And the way you can create areas and volumes is by joining all the dots together. And I'll show you this live on my mobile device if my app works well. All right. Finally, apart from all of this, any control where you're using the camera functionality, you can take a picture and you can store that picture, of course, in your data source of choice. Okay, let's now move straight to a demo of mixed reality. Okay, let's go to my mixed reality demo right now. And the first thing we will do is we will look at exploring some 3D models. So basically, I have created a gallery, and I have some 3D models that I'm storing on my GitHub account. These are models that I stole from the internet. These are in GLB file format, and all I've done right here in this gallery. And by the way, shout out to Geeta. This uses some of the design techniques that Geeta had presented. So that's why it looks a little bit cool. In this gallery, I have the view in MR control. So as you can see right here, I'm pinching this particular control. I can zoom in, I can zoom out, I can move the table around, and I can view this in 3D. Of course, I can click on the item and look at this item in a more prominent manner right here. I've placed the view in 3D control, so I can just click around this and move this. So this is the simplest form of 3D in Power Apps, which is the view in 3D control. All you need is the GLB model, your 3D model. Now, once I have this, if I wanted to view this in my own space, now I'll have to get up for this. And my space is messed up right now, so please don't mind that. All right, so I just clicked on view in mixed reality. So what this is going to do is this is going to open my camera and show me my space and start analyzing my space. And right here, I can tap and I can place this model live in my space. And of course, I can move this around. Now I can walk around this and you can see my sandals and my pajamas. That's fine. I can walk around this and I can see the chair. So this is actually a mixed reality. This is me in my own real space. And right here, I am looking at this chair live in my space. Of course, I can go ahead and take pictures. So let me take a couple of good pictures. All right, and I can go back. I am back into my application. I am back on my seat. And if I go to view screenshots taken, that's my luck. It didn't show up. I'll show you other screenshots later on, but I could store those screenshots in the app itself. So that's view in 3D. I can literally see 3D models and bring them in my space. Think about COVID times. Furniture stores are having a tough time. They could leverage this. Of course, Power Apps may not be the best scenario there, but I can actually place those furniture models live in my home and see how they look like. Okay, the next one I wanted to show you exploring 3D with pins. This is a brand new feature, and unfortunately, this does not work on the mobile app, but it works in the browser. So I'll show you this live in the browser when I demo this. But the key here, the way this works is you just create a collection. The collection needs to have 4 properties. I've highlighted that in the data table on the screen. Label, x-axis, y-axis, and the z-axis. Once you define those points, it will actually place the pins in the model. And even if I move the model, those pins will stay intact. And when I click on the pin, I can trigger some action. Pretty powerful. The next one is measure in mixed reality. So I will have to get up again. So I go to measure in mixed reality, and this time we'll do 2 things. First thing is we will measure something. So I'm going to click on the measure in MR control. Now, once again, it's starting to analyze my space. Previously, it would struggle analyzing things on the wall, but the mixed reality team, product team has worked really hard. It can even analyze things on the wall now. Of course, you have to start from the floor. You can't just go to the wall. Let it analyze your space. Let it pick up the different elements. Now, in this case, let's say I want to measure this. I don't know, what do I call this? This is something that I use for my back while I'm working out. Okay, so I'm going to pick this and I'm going to try and see how long this is. So I just clicked on that plus icon and I'm going all the way to the other side. I click on plus, and that's the measurement. That's around 93 centimeters. I can, of course, I can say complete. So that's the measurement. I can take a picture and I can hit submit. Now, the moment I hit submit, this returns me a JSON style string object. As you can see right here, it gives me the length in meters. It gives me the height. I didn't measure any height there. So it gives you all that information that you can leverage and store all that information later on. I mentioned about view screenshots in MR. If I click on that, as you can see, here's my screenshot that I took. So it is available for me right here. Can even clean up my screenshots by hitting the delete icon. I will go back. And the next thing I wanted to show about measurements is something really cool. I'll go back to measure. And it's going to be hard because I'm in this constricted space right here, but I'm going to try. So once again, let's start from the floor. Let's slowly go up. And this time, let's start measuring from here. We're going to go all the way to the top. We're going to go all the way to the side. I'll cut it short because I want to make sure we cover additional things as well. I'm going to stop here. And I'll go all the way and connect the dots. You see that? Now it creates this cube for me in my space. It's got this cube. And if I hit complete, of course, I can take pictures. If I hit complete and submit, now the result that it returns is the length of each of those measurements that I took, that I conducted. And at the same time, it returns the JSON object for me with all that information available that I can leverage and store in my system of record. So you can measure artifacts. Right here using measure in MR. Now, another thing what you could do is you can place a cube in your space. So for example, if you look at the bottom portion of this app, it says place a cube of dimensions and 0.5, 0.5, 0.5 meters. That's the width, height, and depth of my cube. Now, if I say place the cube, this will once again show up my space. And if I click on this, it places that cube in my space right here. Of course, I can take pictures, whatever. I'll go back and I can even make changes to it, right? So I can say, okay, get me something which is height 1 meter with a small depth 2 meters. Let's place this now in my space. So I can actually change the dimensions. Okay, this is too big. So I can change the dimensions and I can place these cubes in my space. All right, guys, back at my desk. So these are some of the capabilities that is available as part of the mixed reality components in Power Apps. And there are many more things coming, certain things I can't mention, but I can tell you this, that it is going to take mixed reality to the next level, and it's going to be that easy to build apps. Now let me show you how easy. So in this case, I am back on my browser. I'm assuming you guys can see my browser. I need a visual cue or I need a +1 in the chat.
You got it.
I got that. Okay. Now, in my app, if I would like to add those controls, it is as easy as go to Insert, go to Mixed Reality. Now, of course, how do I get Mixed Reality? Go to Settings, Advanced Settings. It's one of the features you need to turn it on. And right here, if I go to Mixed Reality, I can add those options right here. So View in MR. This will add that button for me right here. Nothing needs to be done. Right? View in MR, View in Measure in MR. These are all out-of-the-box controls. So if I play my app and if I explore my controls right here, and let's say I go to this, for some reason, this 3D model is refusing to load. Let me go to explore 3D with pins and see if this one loads. Okay, so this one did load. And I have observed that sometimes it just needs to reconnect for it to show the pins. There you go. So if you notice right here, guys, it is showing me the pins as well that I have placed. And if I select this, you see, it's on click. When I click that, it highlights that in the data gallery. It's really, really cool. I could do a lot of things with this. When the user selects this, it may trigger some process. It may trigger some, it may trigger a flow, or it may trigger another screen. There are many things that you can do right here. Yes, very similar to IKEA. Very, very similar to IKEA is what I've built right here. So you can go and select these different options, these pins that you define, and those pins will be mapped on your model. And this is brand new. This came in, I don't know when, but I think it came in the last week. So that's what you can do right here in the mixed reality space. Very, very simple. Just drag and drop the controls and you are ready to get started with mixed reality. The biggest challenge I had was this, getting these 3D models right here. And as you can see, all of these models are loaded on my GitHub site purely because I wanted to make this quick. You can store this in your data source of choice. You can connect to your data source, read the models, and present them to your users. Any questions on mixed reality?
How big are these files, sir?
Great question. How big are these files? Yes, so there is a limitation to how big these files can be. I have observed that if you really go all out crazy, and let me show you one example of crazy. For some reason, I forgot how to close an app in the mobile app. So I have another mixed reality app, and by the way, this app is available in the community for downloading. I think I presented this in the community call as well once. If I go to explore, I have this 3D model, which is the space launch system. Now, this model is extremely heavy and really mimics the real world SLS system from NASA. So all of these 3D models that I have in this app, I've actually downloaded them live from NASA. And this, in reality, is a model that also has, I don't know what do they call it, motion. There's a word for this. I'm probably not giving you the exact word, but it has motions as well. So as you can see right here on the top, the rocket is kind of opening up before it's launching. So if you have any motions in your 3D models, they will also be captured right here. And yes, they are hard to produce and they are not free for creators. Uday, you are right. So in this case, if I go to view in MR, now this is going to take an age for this to load, Krishna, purely because this is a very, very heavy model. The file size is extremely large. The product team has yet to define the actual specifications around this. So in this case, it's been now over 10-15 seconds. I've clicked view in MR. There's a high chance my app might crash as well, or it might just be kind enough and launch the rocket in my small space. I think the rocket is going to tear apart my room. Let's see. You see, it's crashing. It's already crashing. There's the rocket. You'll just see the base of the rocket and it's tearing apart my room and going up. So I can't even show you that. But that's the real world size of the model. So to answer your question, there are limits that we need to be under in order from a performance standpoint, which the product team will specify soon. Reza's rocket crashed in my house too. Any other questions on mixed reality? Yes, Geeta, it's awesome. And it really, really is very, very simple. You know what? Actually, there's an app that I have not yet shared. I'm working with a 3D creator out in India. Of course, I'm not a 3D creator, so I'm not an expert. I'm trying to build an app for kids in which I'm trying to mimic something what I think Google did that, wherein you have those animals in 3D, right? Was it Google or was it Bing? So I'm actually, yes, Google had it. Yeah, Google did that where they had certain animals. I'm actually working with this 3D creator in India. And he's building these 3D models with animations. That's the word, not motion, animation. So the animals will actually move and scare you. And I can even go and now identify points. You saw those pins, right? So I can talk about different animals and make it like an educative app for kids. That's one of my ideas. I'm giving away my idea. So if anybody wants to try that out, I think that's going to be a really hit concept if we are able to pull that off. I would love to sync up with others to do it. The challenge here is the 3D models. If we can get that, building the app will not be a problem.
I have a question about the pins, Reza.
Yes.
Are the pins something like, say in Google Maps, there's a pin in your map, when you search something, you click on it, more information pops up about a certain area?
Correct.
Or is the pin something to do with like the camera position?
No. The pin is associated with your model, purely with your model. If I move my model, it doesn't matter. It's going to still be associated with my object. So it's not related to your camera position. So let's say if I am trying to show a 3D model of an industrial equipment, and maybe it's a very great use case, right? And maybe I have different pins on the industrial equipment that I want my engineers to look at. And when they click on the pin, it will talk about that component of that equipment. So extremely, extremely powerful of what you could do with this. Very powerful.
And so if you click on it, like you could have it like the on select property of a button. There could be the
100%
on select
yes.
of a pin.
It has an on select property, and that's exactly what I did right here. When I selected the pin, and right now the pin won't load. There's a bug in the code, not my code. It's in preview. Okay, it just loads once. That's what it does. But once I click on it, it actually triggers an on select event. I think it's called pin on select. Let's check it out.
Okay.
There is something. I know. One. On select of that pin. Yeah, so it'll give you the reference of that pin that was selected, and that's what I'm leveraging right here.
That's pretty
cool.
You
can do things like that. Extremely cool.
Thanks, Reza.
Welcome, sir. Disney and Pixar, watch out. Yeah, watch out. All right, so this was on mixed reality. I tried to make it fun. I hope it was fun. I will move ahead now to the next part, and I lost my clicker. All right. Next up now is something that I am more excited about than mixed reality. This one is the geospatial components. Now, the previous demos, whatever I showed you right now, they are all available in public preview for you to get started with. However, things that I'm going to show here are in private preview, so most of these features are not yet available. So geospatial components, I'm sure you must have come across a scenario in your app building history wherein you would require a map. And many a times the solution was to go ahead and probably use those static maps. There is a Bing Map API. I remember a year ago, I created a component that is available in the gallery which does that. Bing Map API that can plot pins, and on click of those pins, you want to take some action. You could do things like that, but it's a lot of work. Moreover, they are not live maps, and they have certain limitations to it. At the end of the day, it's just an image. Yes, you can use Azure Maps, and in order to connect to Azure Maps, you need a PCF component. I have also seen folks build that, but at the end of the day, it's a custom control, and you need pro dev capabilities in order for you to go ahead and leverage those features. Now introducing geospatial components. Geospatial components, you can use them to add two things right here, map and address input, two capabilities. The map is an interactive map, and the address input control is also an interactive control. These are live controls showing you live information, live. These features use mapping capabilities that are provided by a third-party service, TomTom. So it does relate to TomTom. Yes, TomTom still exists, and Microsoft has partnered with TomTom in this case. One thing that nobody will tell you, but I will, anything that you do here will be shared with TomTom. So if you're worried about your information going out, don't use this. Okay, interactive map component. This allows you to easily build or easily bring the power of dynamic mapping capabilities to Power Apps, once again, with just the click of a button. It's a control, you just drag and drop that control on your screen. You can pan, you can tilt, you can zoom, and you can drag your map any position you want. All the gestures work. The current location of the user can also be represented on the map. It has a feature called Use Current Location. Of course, it's using Power Apps. Power Apps can track your location if you allow or provide your location tracking services. So that's available right here for you to leverage. The map component also supports road and satellite views, and there are many more views coming, by the way. And some of the brand new features as part of the map component are traffic and routing information. So it gives you live traffic and routing info. You can also draw shapes on the map. So you can draw polygons, you can draw shapes on the map. Now these are in private preview. I can show them, but I can't show the code because I was told not to do so. The address input component is the second component, and this component basically gives you a text box. And as you type, it will search for live addresses, once again using the TomTom service. It supports fuzzy matching logic, and the component gives you potential multiple address matches that you can select from. Once you make that selection, one of the output, or it provides you a lot of output properties like the location, latitude, longitude, address, street, you name it. Every property associated with that address will be exposed, and you can leverage them in your apps or flows. This component returns the address, and it does return it as structured data, so you can leverage them in your apps. And of course, pass them over to your flows if you need it. Let's now look at a demo of geospatial components. So first thing, I will show you the full spectrum of geospatial. Then I will go into an app which has the features that are currently in public preview. So first I'm going to show you private preview features. So first thing right here is the geospatial sample app that I have. If I head over to the map component demo, very common use case. I have a data source that has my office locations, for example, and this is listing out all my office locations in a gallery. On the right hand side, I am using the geospatial map component. And as the user makes a selection in the gallery, that point is plotted on the map on the right hand side. So it's like a connected gallery connected to the map control. Now I mentioned that you can zoom in, you can zoom out, you can change the direction, you can also go ahead and change the pitch of the map. You can zoom out as much as you want or zoom in as much as you want. So this is a very nice example of how you can place pins on the map, and these pins are coming from my data source. In this case, it's SharePoint. I have a SharePoint list at the back end. Any data source, as long as you have two things. You either need the address, so it can actually go and search for addresses and plot them on the map. You don't need the latitude and longitude. The second one is latitude or longitude. So if you have that, it can even plot the points for you. So you can go either ways, okay? Either ways. And you can also define colors. So my color choices may be bad, but I just wanted to throw in some coolness into this demo to match Clarissa's demo. As you can see right here, it's going ahead and plotting the pins on the map. The second one is the address input component. And right here, I also have the map component. Now, as I start typing, observe what is going to happen right here. As I start typing, the address input component looks up for live addresses. And if I pick the address, it will plot that address on the map for me right here. So I have a address lookup component tied into a map component in this case. And this is a very powerful component. You can even geofence the component. So I can say only show addresses in the United States. I can even do things like that. Or only show addresses in this zip code. Very, very powerful capabilities. I will get to the controls live as well. So right now it's just a demo. The third one is map with information. Now, this was, and here you go. Here's my location for all of you guys. Another key feature was if I have a map. So in this case, I have a map, and as you can see, it's given away my location. I am in San Diego, California. And yes, I am in the Pacific coast. I'm like 3 hours away from your time zone. And as you can see right here, I have the map and I have those same office locations plotted on the map. And the map also does clustering. So if there are two nodes or pins that are too close to each other, it can cluster those nodes for you. You can even uncluster them if you want. So you can force it not to cluster as well. Now, one of the key features that was requested by me was if I click on that map, I want to do something. If I click on the pin, I want to do something. I want to take an action. And the product team actually put that capability in. And anyone who's used the form control in Power Apps, the form control, it has those data cards, right? You can define those data cards. You can do exactly that here. It's not yet available. It's coming soon. But I was so excited that I wanted to do it. So what I did is I went ahead and created my own dialogue component. And when I click on this, it will actually launch my dialogue component. Okay, it's nothing but a set of controls. This is using components and Power Apps. And I'm contextually aware of what pin was clicked. So now I can show users information. I can navigate to a different screen. I can submit something to a system of record. I can post information to Flow. I can do anything right here. Why? Because I have the on-click event. So if I click on something, it will show me about the office location. It's just giving me the details about it and the manager, who's my wife. So here's an example of utilizing or mixing and matching some of the Power Apps capabilities with what is available in the map capabilities. The fourth capability is drawing shapes on the map. Now what you can do, and I think this is already out in public preview, so you can try this out. You can actually go and draw shapes on the map. So I can draw circles, squares, I can even draw free-form shapes, and I have noticed when you do that, it always breaks. So it is still in preview, there are still issues, but you can go and draw shapes. And when you draw these shapes, it will actually give you the GeoJSON associated with it. If anyone has worked with GeoJSON before, that is one of the standard protocols that is leveraged for drawing shapes on maps. Power Apps now supports that natively with this control. It is actually giving you the fully featured JSON output based on the shapes that I'm drawing right here. Extremely, extremely powerful. I'll take this to the next level. I can even draw things and save things in a separate map or store it in my data source. For example, maybe I want to notify someone Let's say I'm an organization that is selling products and my products are stored in warehouses. This is actually, I'm giving you a real world use case, by the way. I'm working with a customer on this and I'm trying to act like it's not for a customer. And let's say they store data, they store artifacts in warehouses, and there is an API available that gives you that gives you information about earthquakes and natural disasters. So it gives you an early warning, basically a week before it warns you that there's something going to happen in that space. And that API actually gives you GeoJSON. It does that. So what we are trying to do right now with this map control is they have their locations defined and we've drawn these shapes, right? And then the API gives me information about what's going to happen in the next week. So we can actually go and draw those shapes and try and see if those shapes collide with each other. And if they intersect with each other, that means there's a potential of damage for their systems. And guess what? Here's an early warning application that we can build using Power Apps, and thanks to this extremely, extremely powerful capability. I'll tell you what, guys, I actually built that for the customer using something known as the Lasso tool, Lasso. It's a free tool available on the web. And what I did was from Power Apps, I created a link that takes you to the web. They go on the web, they do all of this overlapping stuff. They grab the JSON, they put it in my app. I grab the JSON, push it to Flow, and I do a lot of work. So I already had that built, but now I don't need to use the Lasso tool. I can actually just go straight away, go and leverage this. So extremely powerful features are coming right here. Another one.
Looks like we have a question, Reza.
Yes, sorry, I'm not checking the chat window.
No, it's fine, it's fine. Matthew, you have your hand raised.
Matthew is excited.
I'm sorry. That was raised since the last MR thing, but
okay. Never mind.
I'm super pumped about this, so I'll put my hand down.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
All right.
Reza, but there is a question about what kind of licensing is required? It had come up a couple of times.
Let's not talk about it.
Yeah, I know it's not. I know, right?
I'll tell you what. The licensing right now in public is not even in public. Well, the map is in public preview, but some of the features is in private. Right. It does require premium license. It does. The control is a premium license, and you don't have to pay for the service, that is TomTom. You don't have to pay for the Azure cost. Whereas in reality, I'm sure, in reality, I'm sure you would like to pay for that cost rather than the licensing cost out here. The product team is listening to that feedback. They are working on it, but there's no guarantees here. Right now, it's a premium feature, period. It is just showing up as premium, and I'll show you when I actually go to the app.
Okay, real quick, there is a kind of not user group, but Q&A session coming up next week. If you want to ask about licensing, go ahead and register to that event, or also you can pre-submit your question in here, and Ryan is joining that call, Donna, Ryan, few other folks, so you can directly get from the source rather than us, right? So I put some couple of links in there.
Thank you, Uday.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, back to my demo. So continuing with the GeoJSON shapes, I actually went ahead and stole a few GeoJSONs out from the web. I thought this was cool. If I go to all right here, and this may work, this may not work. Okay, it does work. As you can see, it's plotting the states for me. So GeoJSON, right? Maybe I have information in a system of record. In this case, my GeoJSON is being stored in a SQL table. I think it was a SQL table. I'm fetching the data from there, and I'm plotting it right here on the map. And not just that, I can even filter. So if I say, just show me the California state, it will show me California. Show me Colorado, it will show me Colorado. And this is the exact boundary of that state. I think I got this from Wikipedia. So an example of, you can draw shapes, get the JSON, store it in your system of record, get them back, overlap them. A lot of cool functionality available right here. Now the next one, which is certainly in preview, private preview, is traffic and routing. Now in this case, I am showing you 4 waypoints that I am storing in a collection. Even I hope Colorado is square, Matthew. So I have a collection, and this collection has 4 waypoints, as you can see, and I'm plotting those on the map. So the same concept, pins going on a map, same concept. But now there are additional capabilities. One, show me incidents. So this will actually show me live incidents using the TomTom service. So right here, if I click on this, there was a traffic queuing up right here. If I select right here, there is a traffic jam right here. So This is showing me live incidents, plotting it on a map. Next thing, I can even go ahead and see the flow of the traffic. So this is the relative flow of the traffic right now in this space, or I can only see the delays if I'm just interested in the delayed version of the route. I can even go and show my route. Now, because I have these 4 waypoints defined, it is going to go ahead and connect all those 4 points, and I can get the route optimized by distance or get the route optimized by time. At the same time, I can even force it to maintain the order. So right now, I want to go from my coffee shop to the breakfast place. I don't know why somebody would do that, to my appointment, to work, right? So I could do that. I can actually go ahead and leverage this. And not just all of this, I can show my current location. I can also go ahead and see incidents. I can zoom in, zoom out, and as I'm traveling to those points, it can even alert me. This is coming in future, just to let you know. And I thought this was really cool, but I even went ahead and built something called as a super map. This is a map that literally has everything in it. So right here, I'll go ahead and add my waypoints on the fly. So 10370 Richmond Avenue. This is my office location. So I'm going to add this waypoint to my collection. It goes on the map on the right hand side. And this is using the address input control, of course. Next thing, I'm going to put my home address. This is not my house address. So if you want to send me some gifts, you can connect with me later. This is home. I'm going to add this waypoint and maybe 10 something Westheimer, somewhere in Houston, please. This is the only road I'm aware of in Houston. And for some reason, it doesn't like Westheimer. Wow. Oh, it did show up. Come on. There you go. All right. And let's assume this is like a coffee place. Okay. Let's assume. So it has gone ahead and plotted all those 3 things on the map. Of course, I can show incidents. I can check the traffic. Now I can go ahead, keep this clean and show the route. So right now it's showing me the route from office to home to coffee, and I'm forcing it to maintain the waypoint order. Now I can move things around. So I've created this gallery with this up down ticker right here. So you can move the items of the gallery up or down. So let's say I want to start from home. So guess what? The order changes now. I go from home to office to coffee. Maybe I want to go to coffee next. So it goes from home to coffee to office. So it's mapping all of this for you on the fly and optimizing the route based on the optimization characteristics that I pick. Extremely, extremely powerful capabilities coming up here in maps. So I'm looking at the chat window. Any questions, guys? I'm looking at the chat window. Looks like all good things are being said. Licensing, I already answered. It's premium. It's going to be premium. All right. Krishna says, did you hear about that guy who put 50 cell phones in a backpack and stood up? Oh, that's Matthew. Okay, sorry. Color coded. Currently, you cannot color code this. Unfortunately, there's just one color associated with it. But very soon, you can have different layers of color codes. It's coming. You can color code pins. You can even color code the routes, guys. Think about it. I want to go from route 1 to route 2. I want that in blue and then the second route in green. Just want to highlight them in separate color codes. All that cool stuff is coming soon. But right now, these are the capabilities that are available. Of course, I'll show you a more real world use case. Any one of you has been following me. I posted about the COVID. I created a COVID-19 solution that leveraged Power Apps, Power Automate, virtual agents, SharePoint, custom API call, you name it. It had everything that uses the actual Johns Hopkins University web service to give you live COVID data. I shared that app in the community using Bing Maps, but guess what? Now I have upgraded that to use the geospatial controls. So right here, this is showing me live COVID-19 data on that geospatial map. And there are many other features, right? Satellite view, I can turn this on, I can turn this off. I can filter by country, I can filter by region. All these cool capabilities are available for me right here. I got 82, it's more than 82, man. That's 8,20,000 cases here in California. So I'm scared I should alert someone in my family. So I can just click on the email option right here and send an email to them. Also, I have another one which shows the cases around my location. So this is using the location tracking capability, and I'm pushing that pin on the map. So right here on the top, if you notice, I have this toggle control, and I can pull this and it will then filter the map based on the radius that I'm defining, geospatial, right here. So show me all the cases around my location in a 500-mile radius, and I have almost 100K, 110K cases around me right now, maybe even more, right? That's a million. I got a million cases around me. Okay, I need to be careful. Of course, this heads into Mexico and all because that's the radius right here. But the point being, it's extremely, extremely powerful, right? This is using my location. What if I want to use a different location? No problem. Change this to address. What do I use here? The address input component. And now guess what? I can pick my office location. And now this will show me all the cases, let's say in a 200-mile radius around my office location. And I think I need to notify my colleagues about this. Great. Just go ahead, pick their names. One of my colleagues, by the way, is on this call. So I can just go send them an email and they will be notified about this. So extremely, extremely powerful capabilities here. Of course, what I'm showing you is a lot of power apps as well. But the map controls are really helping me to take this to the next level. Okay, I see a lot of cool and good stuff. Okay, I don't see any questions yet. This is another sample app that I created. I just want to show you what the map control has. So this is the control and you can add it. Just go to insert and search for map. If you don't see this, it is probably because your environment admin has not enabled this feature for the environment. It's a preview feature, so you have to go and enable it at an environment level. And then you're also going to go to the settings and enable it. So there are multiple settings that are required here. Then you will get it. And for the folks asking about license, here is the dreaded diamond symbol right here. Okay, so here's the map. It's plotting my exact location right here on this map, as you can see. And of course, there are a lot of features available. Default location, default latitude, default longitude. So where does it default to? In my case, it's going to my location. The default zoom level. So let's say I put this at 5. So this will change the zoom level. Current location. Do you want to show the current location of the user? Yes or no? Satellite view. Do you want to show the satellite view of the map? Yes or no? See, it changed to the satellite view. Clustering. If I have multiple pins, do I want clustering? Yes or no? Do you want the user to change the compass of the map? Yes or no? If I turn it off, little icon for the compass went away. If I make it true, it comes back. So each and every feature is configurable, guys. The color, how many pins. It says max 1,000, but you can go up to 10,000. You can increase pins. Looks like the traffic capabilities are already out, but not the routing ones. So here are the traffic capabilities. And here's my second screen wherein I have the address input component. And as part of this component, of course, what are the capabilities? I can show if autofill needs to be enabled. Second, I can even see how many search results to show the user. So right now it's at 4, right? So if I play this and if I plug in an address, it will show me the first 4. If I want to increase this, I can do that right here by changing the search result set. I can even define search within a radius, and I can define my radius and define my coordinates of a point around which it will start searching for addresses and only recommend those addresses. Extremely, extremely powerful capabilities right here in the address input component. And I believe you can do this for any country as well. And that was it for my demos. Heading back to my presentation, I'll wait for any questions if anyone has before I head over to the presentation again. I'm looking at the chat window. Okay. I don't see any questions. All right, I just see beautiful map. All right. So just to wrap it up, some learning materials for all of us. Mixed reality has been announced. This was announced a while ago, actually. So go ahead and check this out. That's the official announcement link, docs.microsoft.com. That should be your Bible. Whenever you're building something, whenever you're trying something out, trust me, I was trying things out. You saw the pin feature. I did not look anywhere. I just went to docs.microsoft.com. I read the documentation, I explored, and I did the pinning myself. That's how easy it is if you read the documentation correctly. Any caveat, licensing, any questions you have, docs.microsoft.com will have the answer to that 90% of the times. Same thing goes for geospatial controls. And of course, if you want to see some community demos, on my YouTube channel, I have a couple of those, the geospatial ones and the COVID tracking ones. So go and check them out. And my good friend Daniel Krishnan actually did an excellent video on mixed reality. If you truly want to see mixed reality in action, go check his video out. It's really, really neat. And finally, thank you for giving me this opportunity, and thank you for joining this call. These are the details for connecting with me.
I'm ready to build right now. This is amazing because I was flirting around with my iPhone, right? And on my iPhone, it has the measurements. So when I was building something for my deck, I used that, but I can build my own app now to do all this without having to use my Apple, my iPhone. I mean, it's my iPhone application. I can build my own. That's amazing. I'm ready to go. I hate coming to these meetings because I always get riled up and I need to build something right now.
And this is in preview, so it's a good try to try them out, right? Before they go into GA.
Right.
It's a good chance to look at what's coming. And see, this is a premium feature, yes, and that's the reason why they are adding these additional capabilities in order to justify the fact that it's a premium feature, right? Mapping, routing, tying up with TomTom, those things are required. If you're paying a price for such sophisticated features in a low-code manner, think about it. Just drag and drop. You're there. I think it's going to be a game changer. The geospatial components, and I know what's coming. I can't disclose that. Unfortunately, I can disclose to some of you guys, but not all of you.
Right.
Extremely powerful things are coming in future.
So could I build like a Lyft or like a Uber type app using this?
You could build that. You could.
Oh shit. Okay.
All right. I see a few questions. Interesting ones. So Webmaster says, will this be available in Teams and Project Oakdale? So great question. I don't. So I am also working on a video for Project Oakdale, by the way, for Power Platform. I think they rebranded it, Power Platform Community Conference. So do check that out. I'll paste the link. I don't think this is available purely because you have to turn on this feature in the environment, and the environment settings are disabled for Oakdale. Right now, no, but in future, definitely they will be available. Yes.
Reza, it's available actually. I just looked it up.
You see, Uday is right here for me. It is available. Thank you, Uday.
I just put the control, and it's available in Project Oakdale.
All right, so geospatial available in Project Oakdale, but guess what? It's preview. Oakdale itself is in preview, so don't use it in production scenarios.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. What else? Mixed reality is supported in Project Oakdale. Uday says yes. Thank you. Geospatial, MR, everything. Scaling will cost you a fortune. Yes, scaling will cost you a fortune, but I am hopeful that there will be changes. So one of the major announcements at Microsoft Ignite 2020 was around Oakdale, right? CDS Premium, now CDS, guess what? Standard connector, at least in the context of Microsoft Teams in Oakdale. Guess what? Azure API management, custom connectors now within the context of Microsoft Teams is a standard license. All you have to pay for is the Azure cost. I am pretty confident in future, you will only be paying for the Azure costs associated with Azure Maps. This is Reza calling it out. After 4 months it goes live, don't come and tell me, Reza, it didn't go out of premium. I'm just thinking it may go out of premium. I'm hoping it does, because I see a lot of value in this.
Yeah, especially the Azure API management, right? That's gonna be the killer to all of these premium connectors, and you really don't need it as long as you can put it in their host there and connect to any of the APIs.
Yeah.
You really don't need the premium connectors.
And I worked with Azure API management just yesterday because I was prepping up for my PPOC demo. Unfortunately, I can't show that because they only gave me a time slot. So it was so easy to build a custom connector. Literally just put the Swagger file in there. You're good to go. Just push it, your custom connector is ready, use it in your apps and flows and expand this.
We're still using Swagger?
Sorry?
I mean, I heard Swagger a while ago. We're still using Swagger?
Actually, my scenario uses, I wanted to use an AI builder feature called receipt scanning. And AI builder, I'm sure about this, Uday. AI builder is not available in Project Oakdale. It's not. So what I had to do was, Azure has the receipt scanning component that you can leverage. I wanted to call that, and I wanted to make it a free connector. So what I did is I used Azure API management. I'm giving all my tricks away. Azure API management to call Azure API management to call Azure Cognitive Services
Yep.
Yeah.
to scan my receipt.
That makes
And
sense.
that is my demo actually for PPOC or PP POPCC.
Popsies.
POPCC, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense though. That's what it was before. So I got you.
Externalizing of Power Apps portal otherwise gets expensive. Of course, if you need external users, especially anonymous users, you have to go to portals. Portals is expensive. There is a cost. External users, by the way, is now with Microsoft Teams and Project Oakdale, external users as guests are covered as part of the standard license, at least from that CDS perspective for that Microsoft team.
Oh, cool.
Can't wait for that PPOC demo. You know what, Matt? I can't wait to see the feedback either. I think I've given my heart and soul out. So let's see.
Always.
Any
So-
other
so Reza,
questions?
Yeah. So Reza, under Azure API management,
Yeah.
can I use the premium connectors, not the API? I know API you can do, but can you do premium connectors like, let's say, ServiceNow, or
Yes.
can you do it? Can you like basically encapsulate in there, and then you use the Azure API to you kind of basically bypass this loophole,
Yeah.
right? Basically,
You can do that.
Okay.
You can do that. You can build any connector of your choice. The only thing is it has to go through Azure API management. And the best part is creating a custom connector requires a lot of work. In Azure API management, they made it so simple to talk to any data source or service. And just click on a button. It generates the custom connector. Just pick your Oakdale environment and push it in there.
Yeah.
As easy as that.
No, but can you use existing connectors that are available in Power Platform as premium connectors?
No,
Not the
say no.
API. API, I get it, right? If ServiceNow has an API, then yes, I can go there. But without the bypassing the API, but leveraging existing connectors,
No.
right, that are available in Power Platform. I don't think so.
Uday,
Right?
I don't think you can leverage existing connectors.
Yeah,
I may be,
yeah.
but I don't think so.
Okay,
They will
makes sense.
make you work for it.
Yeah. Otherwise, I mean, you really don't have a uses for that. Premium connector is dead, right?
Honestly, if you ask me, the connectors that are premium, well, they want you to work in Azure because then you're paying for the consumption cost in Azure. Don't forget that. It's a trade-off. Consumption versus all-out premium.
Awesome. Thank you.
And some really
As
good,
always, Reza.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. I'm gonna go ahead and take control and wrap us up. Thank you again, Reza.
Most welcome. Thank you for having me again. Or this is the first time, but for me it feels again because
No. Well, it was amazing. Thank you so much, and thank you to Clarissa. I think she's gone to bed, but thank you for everyone for sticking around. I'm gonna attempt a live demo here of an app from Daniel Christian, sorry. This is his lottery picker app that I'll post a link to in the chat. I highly recommend reading up on that if you're interested in knowing how this works under the hood, as it were. I made a few tweaks to it. Hopefully everyone had a chance to submit feedback. Even if you didn't, the link is still there. We can collect feedback for the presenters in our group. But I'm going to go ahead and click and see what happens. Woo! We have a winner. Krishna, congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.